Hello and welcome to another Smaulgld live stream. It is the 7th of June 2019. Welcome Smaulgld mug stackers and game changers. Tonight's topic is Bloomberg story, India to criminally ban cryptocurrencies. Tonight is Friday Night Crypto with Smaulgld. For those of you not familiar with the format of the Smaulgld channel, on Friday night we do exclusively cryptocurrency stories. Saturday night we do Saturday Night Silver with Smaulgld. And Sunday, we do Solid Gold Sunday with Smaulgld. Also, generally what happens is I go through the events of the day or the topic of the day or the topics of the day, and we save all comments to the end. And so if you want my attention, you want your comment called out, you've got a question or a comment, type in SMAULGLD in the comment bar, and I'll be sure to get to your comment. All right, well, let's take a look at this Bloomberg story, India to criminally ban cryptocurrencies. It's a story that came out today. It's an exclusive from Bloomberg. I've done a little background on it. It's hard to tell whether the story is true, meaning whether the legislation has already been packaged up and passed and whether it's going to be signed by Modi. But I would say that India has taken a very harsh stance on cryptocurrencies. Prime Minister Modi is somewhat of a, I'm not very familiar with Indian politics, but he's somewhat of a nationalist. If you recall, back in 2016, he went on TV and he basically demonetized the two largest Indian rupee notes, which is about 85% of all the cash in circulation. Now, I would have thought that that would have really annoyed the people in India. And I got a lot of emails and comments from people living in India, and a lot of them were not upset about it. They thought it was the patriotic thing to do because it was designed to weed out corruption. So if you could not turn in your rupee notes and you couldn't explain where you got those old notes, you wouldn't get new ones. And it was designed, they say, to ostensibly the reason that they gave for doing was to root out corruption, a lot of corruption in cash. It was also a way of capitalizing the banks, meaning that if you brought all your cash from the provinces and you didn't have a bank account, well, now they'll give you one. In order to get your cash or your cash equivalent, you had to turn in those notes. So there is a lot of precedent in the Modi terms of doing what's supposedly right for the national money supply. They've also had issues with gold. Briefly, they have had a 10% tariff added on gold. A few years back, they instituted a voluntary gold monetization scheme. And under that scheme, the idea was that you would turn your gold into the government and they would give you interest on your gold. And that gold then would be residing with the government and you would have just the right to receive the interest. The other thing they did, I think it was sometime earlier this year or late last year, they've come up with a new way of trying to get the Indian gold onto, I'm not quite sure if it's a blockchain, but it's a digitized system they have in India. You turn your gold in and then they give you a digital password and you can trade your gold on there. So it's another way of tracking what's going on in India. Remember, India, very large country, very diverse country, many people living out in farmland where there's not a lot of banking services, government services, a lot of under-the-table transactions, lots of barter. There's plenty of smuggling that goes on in India. They've got a very large border. They have many airports. And Modi appears to be trying to systematically bring India under its more of a controlled system, bringing in, there's talk about having a digital rupee. So you could tell he's got grand plans, and they're very much top down. You would kind of say maybe nationalistic, and doing what's right for the country. And of course, Bitcoin, just like gold, falls in the crosshairs. Now, gold is a problem for India, not just because the Indians love it, and which means they love it more than they love the rupee, and that they're willing to store their wealth in rupees and not necessarily in gold monetized or gold-backed bonds, or they're not willing to put their gold onto some type of digital scheme. Now, eventually, they may try to make these schemes or these proposals that are voluntary, mandatory, but from what I understand, that might not go over very well. That might be very unpopular, but they definitely try to curtail gold consumption in Italy. The Modi government does. They don't want, when you have no gold mining internally and you have to import gold, those gold imports can be 10, 15, up to 20% of overall imports in a given month. And that screws up the balance of trade. And of course, gold is untrackable. Then you've got gold coming in through smuggling. So it goes against the idea of having a national currency, and Bitcoin fits the scheme there as well. So here's the story that we saw today, Bloomberg exclusive, and they're saying that they're proposing a 10-year jail term for cryptocurrency use, and then highlighting that maybe they want to introduce their own digital currency. So this would be a case where a government's looking at cryptocurrency not as I've been portraying what I think is happening in the United States as a complementary currency, or even not even a currency. In the United States, they've legally decided, in order to get Bitcoin futures, that Bitcoin's not a cryptocurrency at all. It's a commodity. It's an asset. Now, actually, it's a payment system that has a currency attached to it, but that's beside the point. For the purpose of the United States, it is not deemed a competing currency, really. It's more like an asset you can spend, and I think that's how the U.S. is getting comfortable with the futures trading, with the CFTC, and then also now the SEC. We talked about this last night, about how the SEC wants to figure out a way to get a Bitcoin ETF. So the U.S. is definitely not on the let's ban it. It looks like they want to subsume and try to integrate a lot of Bitcoin cryptocurrencies into the current financial and payment systems. So that really wouldn't be a threat to the national currency, because remember, it's different for India. The rupee is the rupee, and if given a chance, Indians would rather use something other than the rupee. Whereas the dollar is what not only Americans use and will prefer to use, but the whole world uses. So Bitcoin doesn't present the same threat to the dollar as it might to the rupee. But in the United States, we have Ohio is allowing people to pay their taxes in cryptocurrencies. I think that in the United States, the amount of revenue, the amount of innovation, the amount of investment, the amount of Wall Street, financialization, custody, trading around cryptocurrencies is something that all can be subsumed into that massive Leviathan. And it doesn't look like the United States is on the path towards anything other than reining it in and bringing it under lots of different regulations. In New York, you've got the BIT license, and then you have CFTC regulation, and the SEC is grappling with it. And the IRS is also looking to come up with some new regulations on how to tax airdrops and other types of forks and so on. India is not really looking at it the same way. They're not looking at it as a complement to the rupee. Remember, Modi demonetized his own currency, so it's not a stretch to demonetize or to ban cryptocurrencies. Now, whether they can do this effectively or not, and whether it's a smart move, I don't know. But I'm of the view that they might do it. Now, what's interesting is they're saying there would be a 10-year jail term. It would look like there might be 90 days in order to turn in your Bitcoin. This sounds very eerily similar to the 1933 Franklin Delano Roosevelt order, in which the people, the citizens, were required to turn their gold in, and it was a 10-year penalty, criminal penalty there as well. It says, I wrote today, perhaps India will ban Bitcoin and only allow their central bank to hold it, similar to how the U.S. banned private gold ownership, but allowed the government to confiscate and hoard it. I'm not sure they want to do that, whether the government's interested in cryptocurrencies, but clearly they're of the view that if it's going to be a competition, they may not want it. Now, would it succeed? I don't think it would, because India is an unwieldy country. Any country that size is bound to be. But I don't know how they're going to track. Are they going to track down people, throw them in jail? Now, the other question is, how many people would, quote, resist if they did put something like this in place? And this is one of the arguments I made back in 2013. A lot of Bitcoiners are always telling me you can't ban it because if you ban it, it's just like when you try to ban drugs or alcohol, the people do it anyway. And I don't buy that argument because I understand if you are addicted to drugs or you just like your drink, you're going to find a way to do it even if it's illegal. Same with like pirated music. People are going to steal stuff if they can. But there's no advantage to, if you're not allowed to use cryptocurrency, there's nothing you can do with it. It's not like you get a buzz having a cryptocurrency. Wow, it's illegal, I'm using it. The only reason you would disobey the order in India, if there indeed was one, would be if you had to leave the country with it, in which case, screw them, you're just gonna leave. It's capital flight. You'll convert to Bitcoin however you can, and then you're gone. You're doing black market trading, which makes sense. You have to do black market, meaning that you're doing criminal activity. So you're going to use a cryptocurrency, maybe not Bitcoin, but you're going to use some cryptocurrency. But just to use it, to stick it to the man and say, hey, I'm running the crypto, I'm with my crypto buds here. Yeah, you might get a few Indians like that, but that's not going to be widespread resistance. It's not the same thing. You read stories about the prohibition in the United States. The law enforcement was in on the bootleg, and everyone just ignored it, and they went about their business, and they made a lot of mafia people rich in it. But I don't think that if you ban Bitcoin, that's going to make people say, oh, I need the thrill of using Bitcoin, and I'm going to use it. At least that's my prediction. I don't know what would happen. But India, I don't see them not trying something like this if they wanted. Now, there is also, they have had a number of crypto exchanges in India. This one, ZedPay, they've got like a 1.5 million users. They say they're bringing on 200,000 extra a month. I don't know what's going to happen to all those. Are they just going to either arrest 2 million people, or they're going to turn in their Bitcoin? But getting ahead of ourselves, because there were some stories, and I was contacted by some people living in India pointing out that this hasn't really happened yet. This is a Bloomberg story. Maybe it won't happen. But the Reserve Bank of India, I was going to say the Royal Bank of India, they deny knowledge or involvement in this draft bill. Now, that doesn't mean that the legislature hasn't put together this bill, and I believe that the bill is circulating, and it does contain these draconian provisions. However, the Reserve Bank of India is the one who has, and actually this isn't really a denial of the story, it's just that the Reserve Bank of India says they don't know what the legislature is doing. But we do know that the Reserve Bank of India a few months back, or 6 months or a year ago, I don't know when it was, but they forbid banks from dealing with the crypto exchanges. So it made it very hard for cryptocurrencies, crypto businesses to work with the banks. So it's not like there's some kind of rift between the Reserve Bank of India's position on cryptocurrencies and the legislatures. And I'm sure Modi, I don't know, and I haven't read anything about it, but just given that he demonetized his own currency, I can see, well, this would be attractive to him. I could see how he's trying to get the gold into the system. These are all national goals. So if they're going to issue their own national rupee, digital rupee, then I don't think they want these cryptocurrencies floating around being a competition. We'll have to follow it, but I don't see it out of the realm. But I also don't see it working unless you get other countries doing the same thing, because it's not going to succeed if it's just in India. And we're seeing there's many countries that have already, like Japan, 100% legal, 100% regulated. In France, 100% legal, regulated. They sell Bitcoin at tabac kiosks. And also, there's legislation in France where banks have to deal with you. They can't say, no, you're dealing crypto. So there's enough places in the world that have legitimized and embraced cryptocurrencies. You got Malta. There's plenty of places in the world that have regulated crypto. And there's others, mostly third world nations have banned cryptocurrencies. This kind of puts India in the crosshairs of being, are you a modern nation or are you a totalitarian / third world nation? I'm sure they wouldn't agree to either of those characterizations, but that's something that they would share with the other nations that have banned cryptocurrencies. So I'm not sure where it's going to go, but I wouldn't bet on it happening. I would my guess would be there's something less than criminal, but something very what's the word? Onerous. So that basically it would discourage many people from using the cryptocurrency. But they could just go ahead and say it's illegal and we're going to try to clamp down on it. I think that would be a mistake. But I thought that the demonetization of the rupee was a mistake, and many Indians told me, no, that was a good thing. That's a good thing. They shouldn't have that kind of stuff. Yeah, so I don't know what's going to happen, but it hasn't happened yet. And it's interesting. It was a Bloomberg exclusive, so who knows? Probably will know in a couple of months. I think this is actually legislation for July. But given the fact that Modi did win re-election, I think it makes it more likely because he is we've seen what he's done, and he is for the national currency. He's for digitizing and bringing everything in India into the 21st century, and he may think it makes sense to ban cryptocurrencies. And then you say India is also adding gold to their reserves, not at a rapid rate. They only got like 630 tons, but Indians themselves have 24,000 tons plus. I mean, the temples there have about 4,000 tons. So there's a lot of gold in India. Appears to be a decent amount of crypto in India. The reason I mentioned that the central banks might hold it, the Central Bank of India might hold it, is if you have 90 days to turn it in, you're going to turn it in. Does that mean India wants to now go and sell it? They might turn it in, so to speak, and then hold on to it. You know, Bulgaria, I think it's Bulgaria. Bulgaria has like 200,000 Bitcoin that they seized in some criminal operation. So the U.S. used to have a Bitcoin too, but they sold it. So it's possible that the Reserve Bank of India may pull something like, as I mentioned, the U.S. did in 1933, confiscate the gold. The U.S. put it into Fort Knox. Maybe if they did pass this type of law, confiscate the Bitcoin, and I don't think they want to set up trading operations. Maybe they just hold on to it at the Reserve Bank of India. All speculation. I'm not predicting it, but that is a possibility. All right, so if you got questions or comments on that, let's see them in the comments at the end. Now, let's see what other stories we got. Now, we break these crypto stories down just for want of some organization into adoption. We're going to talk about the Facebook coin, certain investments, Litecoin. Now we've got crypto Moronica. We're going to got something there. We're going to talk about the price and anything new on the regulatory front other than this Indian thing. Let's take a look at some of the adoption stories. I don't have the most, well, I have them, but I don't have a slide to show you. But we like to look at the development of the Bitcoin ATMs, and they're pretty much, they're approaching 5,000 worldwide. Let me just see, on Coin ATM Radar is a site to go to. 4,936, of which about over 3,100 are in the United States. About 3,500 ATMs worldwide carry Litecoin. That's the largest coin next to Bitcoin that is dispensed through those ATMs. And there's about 2,200 Coinstar, those machines you get where you turn your coins in the grocery store, that now dispense Bitcoin as well. Now, Mexico is getting 8 new cryptocurrency exchanges. That's pretty interesting. We're also going to say, I think Malaysia, too, is adding cryptocurrency. So these are regulated exchanges, and it shows that governments, for the most part, around the world are looking. This is additional revenue. You get trading profits from companies, therefore they pay more tax. If it's all done on centralized exchanges, you can see what happens. You can tax it again. There's jobs in the industry. So banning something basically takes you out of the business. All right, let me see if I have that story on, I think was it Malaysia? Well, the Philippines Central Bank, here's one. BitMEX Ventures invest in crypto exchange